We are pleased to introduce you the second two webinars on the project Sustainable Civil Society Dialogue for Sustainable Development, implemented by Kyoto Club as lead applicant, together with our colleagues of the Energy Environmental Association of Izmir as partner. Mrs. Azal Joskun is also connected and available in chat for any question or problem. I think it's time to leave the stage to our panelists. For the first webinar, we have Mr. Marco Bernardi and Mr. Lorenzo Barilli, both working for CAP Group, a big water company which operates in north of Italy. And for the second webinar, we have Mrs. Noemi De Santis and Mr. Paolo Fornari, both working for Junco Company, which operate on waste management.
Okay, good morning to everybody. I'm Lorenzo Barilli. I'm the head of the laboratory in quality control, drinking water quality control laboratory of CAP, Gruppo CAP. Gruppo CAP is a company, a big company, one of the bigger in Italy, involving in the integrated water cycle. Integrated water cycle, I mean supplying of drinking water, managing of sewerage system, and managing of the wastewater treatment plants. We operate in northern Italy, in Milan province. This is the area. In this map, you can see the area where we operated. We supply water to about 2.5 million inhabitants in 150 municipalities. You can see some number. We operate our piping is extension is long about 6,500 and 500 kilometers. Aqueducts and also sewerage system. We drill water from underground using about 750 wells. The only source we utilize, you use is underground water. I'm the head of the laboratory. We have a big laboratory to check, to analyze the quality of the drinking water. In this slide, you can see some number. We analyze about 25,000, more than 25,000 samples per year of drinking water, and about 5,000 samples per year of waste water. The subject of this presentation of tomorrow is the current active legislation on drinking water in the European Union. In the European Union, the drinking water is checked by the Drinking Water Directive 98/83 by European Community. It is an old directive because it is active since 1983. This directive was updated in the 2015, but only the annexes were updated. In Italy, we have a national law, Decreto Legislativo 31, sorry. This is the transposition of the Drinking Water Directive, European Drinking Water Directive, into the Italian legislation. European directive establish who is the competent authorities that has the duty to check, to monitor the quality of the drinking water. Each member state may choose the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Health Agency. In Italy, we have the National Health Agency. The European Union, the directive establish where the water has to be checked, monitored, the point of compliance, so-called point of compliance. The directive establishes when monitoring the water, the frequencies of monitoring, and the directive establishes what parameters has to be analyzed and how, which analytical methods has to be used for analyze, to check the quality of the drinking water. All of these elements, why? Because the human health is the principal focus of this drinking water directive. As I said, each member state transposes the directive into his national legislation, and the Italian law is the Decreto Legislativo 31 since 2001. Also, this law was updated after the updating of the European Union Drinking Water Directive in the 2017. The directive requires that member states monitor, regularly test a list of parameters. They are microbiological parameters, especially Escherichia coli and Enterococci. They are two microbiological parameters present in the sewerage system, and we have to prevent the contamination, the cross-contamination between sewerage system and drinking water, obviously. The drinking water established to check 26 chemical parameters, such as metals, as arsenic, nickel, lead, as chlorinated solvents, as 3-halomethanes, and pesticides. And these parameters are set because of their impact on human health. Therefore, exceedances of the values set for them require that member states take immediately remedial action. And then the legislation asked to check for 20 other parameters. They are parameters that not pose a direct threat to human health. For example, they are iron. Iron is not poisoning, but it gives color to the water, such as chloride, sodium. They have an indirect relevance for water quality, but they don't pose a direct threat to human health. All these parameters are generally based on guidelines for drinking water published by the World Health Organization. Studies of the World Health Organization hypothesize that a man drink 2 liters of water per day per 70 years of his life, and at this concentration there are no evidence of improving of some disease. In the next slides, I show you the microbiological parameters established by the European community. As I said, Escherichia coli and Enterococci are the two microbiological parameters to check. They have to be 0. We have, because the water can be said drinking, there it has not to be any microbiological parameters in it. This is an example of the other parameters. In our area, we have some problem about nitrate. Nitrate in the area of Milan are close to the limit of concentration. In our area, the problem, the nitrate problem, is not an agricultural problem, not due to breeding, but is due to loss in the sewerage system. in our area we have other problems about the main problem in our area. The main pollutants in our area are the trihalomethanes. We have a large contamination of trihalomethanes in the area around Milano. These limits I show in these slides are the European one. For trihalomethanes, we have a limit of 100 micrograms per liters. In Italy legislation, we have established a more stringent limit. The limit in Italy for trihalomethanes is only 30 micrograms per liter instead of 100 as in the European, just because we have a large contamination due to these micropollutants. In this table, we can see indicator parameters. These are parameters that has no direct threat to human health. As I said before, they are, for example, iron, manganese, sulfate. Where the drinking water, the European Drinking Water Directive and the national legislation applies to all distribution systems serving more than 50 people. To drinking waters distributed, supplied by tankers, to drinking waters supplied in bottles or in container, and to water use in food processing industry. Since February 2018, a new proposal for the revision of the Drinking Water Directive is in discussion in the European Commission, European Parliament, and European Commission. Why? Because since just 20 years are passed by from the old directive. The EU wants to renew, wants to update in the light of the scientific in the technological progress, the knowledge of the water. The new EU rules on drinking water improve access to water for all, upgrade the drinking water standards, and increase transparencies to empower, to trust consumers to use tap water. The revision follow the Right to Water initiative. It was a big initiative in the 2013, which collected more than 1 million signatures, especially from German citizens, and forced the Commission to renew, to revise the European directive. The main elements of the revision: updating the existing safety standard. 18 new or revised parameters were introduced. One of them is microplastic or perfluorinated substances, as PFAS, and because an issue of emerging is relevant. Sorry, I have a problem with the. Okay. Sorry, I had a problem with the connection. 18 new parameters were introduced. An important element is the introduction of a risk-based safety assessment, the so-said water safety plan approach. The citizen asked for more transparency. Consumers want more transparency about information about the results of analytical controls, about how to reduce water consumption, about the performance of the water system in terms of efficiency, leakage rates, energy consumption per cubic meter. Another important element is to harmonize standards for products in contact with drinking water because the trade of, for example, pipes in Italy or in Germany or in French has different rules. So one of the elements is to harmonize the standards for products in contact with the drinking water. And another very important element required also from the United Nations is to improve access for all people, especially for vulnerable and marginalized groups, as nomads, as Sinti, as Rom, as homeless. The directive, the new directive, the proposal of the new directive ask to think about put in public parks, in airports, in station, in publics, in big publics place, fountains or kiosk to supply water to these people and to inform them about the possibility to have drinking water. These are some new parameters introduced in the new proposal. We have the introduction of the legionella. We have the introduction of the Escherichia coli. No, sorry, they were present in the last one. Is in discussion the introduction of microplastic. Is in discussion the introduction of emerging micropollutants like hormones, like plastificants, and so on. Acqua Pubblica Europea, the European Association of Public Water Operators, in which CAP is present, welcomes the proposal of the renewal, but warns that it needs to take better in account the complex realities of the water sector in terms of governance, of technical limitation, and of social implication. And there are also some difficult because such parameters like microplastic, endocrine disruptors will create considerable technical and financial challenges. It's very hard to analyze them, and there are lack of standardized methods to measure them. What are the last steps and the future steps? The last year, 2019, was a year lost for the revision of the directive because of the election of the new parliament, the necessity of the new commission to settle, and so during last year no discussion were carried on. Now with the parliament in his full function, the European Parliament, the Parliament will enter into negotiation with Council and with the EU Minister, and we hope in this new year 2020 we will have the new European directive published. One of the important elements in the new European directive, is the water safety plan approach, a risk-based approach introduced by the European legislation. Gruppo CAP was the first in Italy to introduce the water safety plan approach in December of 2016, and the Italian National Health Agency recommended the application of the risk matrix elaborated in Gruppo CAP in the model to propose to the other water supply system. how does it work, water safety plan in Gruppo CAP? We have periodically meetings, working tables involving all the stakeholders. The stakeholders are the National Health Agency, Istituto Superiore di Sanità, the local health agency, ATS, the Environmental Protection Agency, RAPA, and the university, polytechnics of Milan, and so on. We meet together about one per month, and and study the risk assessment municipality by municipality. The risk assessment is studied step by step. We have the first step is a drinking water description. The second step is the identification of unsafe events. The third step is a risk assessment from captation to tap, all the possibility of risk we can found, and then we will upgrade the monitoring, the control tools, and so on, and then we define an action priority. The more the problem is big, the bigger is the problem, the first we have to solve it. I think I had used my 20 minutes time, and so now is time for question, I suppose.
Lorenzo, thank you very much. I am Eugenio Barevecchiesi from Kyoto Club. I am the one who is in charge for reading the questions of the participants. So okay. I would like, let's leave like few minutes, 2-3 minutes for the participants who, if there are any questions. And okay. In the meantime, I would like to ask you just a few things about your presentation you just shown. The first one was just a curiosity of mine. Why in Italy some limits are more strict compared to the EU ones?
It's a possibility that the European directive leave to member state. It is possible to each member state to set more stringent limits because of local problems, because of scientific studies, and the only parameters that has a more strict limit in Italy in respect the European one is the 3 halometers, because is a very spread, a pollution very present in our area. So Italy choose to set a more stringent limit to protect human health.
Okay, so, thank you very much. The other one was about, of course, is about the microplastics that you mentioned before.
Yes.
I mean, I know that it is not an easy topic right now, but do you know if there are some pilot projects about studying them, about how to avoid them? Because to avoid the presence of microplastics is I think it's very difficult, you know what I mean?
Yes, it's a very difficult argument. We have no analytical methods. We have no a definition of microplastic. We are discussing about the dimension of fiber to consider a macroplastic. And so the last rumors said that in the probably in the new renewal, in the update of the directive, the microplastic will not be present because there is not a unique thought in the Commission, in the European Union about this problem. In Milan, we are lucky because we use only underground waters to supply in aqueducts. So in our area, the problem is not so present because fortunately at 100 meters underground, the plastic till now is not gone. But the problem is much more present if a company supply water from lakes, from rivers, from superficial waters, surely. But the last rumors I know is that in the new in the new directive, microplastic will not be present because there is no a unique thought about definition and about how to treat them.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can go on with Paolo right now. I will with Marco. Sorry,
okay.
I will give him the webcam again because I switched it off before, so he has now it again.
Here I am.
Of the one of Lorenzo. Thank you very much again. Lorenzo, was very interesting presentation. I would like to ask you just one last thing. If you could send us something about this, the water safety plan that you mentioned in your PPT.
Sorry, I cannot listen what you said.
I just said if you could send us some documents, some more material about the water safety plan you mentioned, because it's very interesting for us.
Surely.
Thank you very much.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Marco Bernardi and I am R&D manager of Gruppo CAP. My presentation will directly take the baton from what Lorenzo said, and let me also say why it's now from, let's say, quality to R&D to discuss about this new topic, because while Lorenzo spoke about something that is already regulated by European and national laws, my topic is still something in development. And specifically, I will discuss about the development of a risk management plan for water reuse in agriculture. Exactly what I was saying. So from the water safety plan, which CAP started working on in late 2015 and implemented in these years, now we are passing to what we call a sanitation safety plan. A sanitation safety plan is indeed the same concept, but referred to the management of sanitation systems, so of wastewater, in particular treated wastewater. The concept of the sanitation safety planning is obviously to identify and manage the health risk related all along the sanitation chain, possibly presented by the water, to guide the investment to work on this risk, possibly mitigate as much as possible, and very importantly, since this is a obviously delicate topic, to provide assurance both to the public authorities, so to policymakers, but also to the public, so to the people, that what comes out of a sanitation safety plan is completely safe and risk-free. Sanitation safety planning gives a structure that, let's say, a framework in which the different actors are working to achieve the goals that I said before. And again, the approach is really to target the decrease as much as possible of health-related risks. YCAP decided to work and develop a sanitation safety plan because the theme of the reuse of treated wastewater is becoming of greater importance, and mostly related to two topics. So the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda, in particular related to the Sustainable Development Goal 6, and also to all the efforts that the European Commission is putting on the topic of the circular economy. From a certain perspective, the reuse of treated wastewater, in the sense that the nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus as main ones, will be recycled from a waste into a new fertilizing agent, because the reuse of wastewater for irrigation is not only the topic of water, but what it is inside the water as nutrient. But this is perfectly fitting with the concept of circular economy. So, as I said, water reuse is an effective way both to solve the issue of water scarcity, because we see that droughts are increasing in Europe, in the European Union, have been increasing in the last few years, but also to manage everything that comes, the turning inside the concept of depuration, so treating of wastewater, because if we are using treated wastewater not to be released in the water bodies, but to be recycled for irrigation and farm and agricultural purposes, we also need to treat less the wastewater. We don't have to remove nitrogen and phosphorus at the level that we do now. So we are also, decreasing the cost of the overall treatment. Obviously, this has to be matched with a very, very solid approach to health and environmental protection, because we are always talking about wastewater. In Italy, there is a law, the law 185 from 2003, developed by the Ministry of Environment, which already regulates a bit the concept of reuse of domestic, urban, and industrial wastewater for agricultural or other uses. For example, the washing of the streets and other kind of uses, and also distinguishes between direct and indirect reuse of wastewater. The standard is very strict about the quality of this water, and it regulates very clearly about the concentration of different chemicals and microbiological parameters. In parallel, also Europe is moving. Italy has a regulation. Europe still does not have a clear regulation about water reuse, but they are working on it. They have published in 2018 this manifesto, which clearly states that there is a priority, because there is a gap between what it's treated as wastewater, so 40,000 million cubic meter, and what is reused right now, so short of 1,000 million cubic meter. So it can be done better, and the European Commission is proposing a regulation that is still, as Lorenzo said before, it has been slowed down by political issues, but it's been put together, and it's structured, first of all, by defining 4 classes of water quality, defined on the basis of the crop and irrigation method that is applied. Defines the microbiological and physicochemical parameters that this water has to respect, and also something about the monitoring. Everything put together, it's the risk management plan that has to involve not only the water service, but all the key actors turning around the concept of water reuse for agriculture. This is actually the table that describes the water quality classes defined by the proposal of European regulations. And I mean, you can see that there are distinguished, for example, about which kind of treatment has to be used to produce this water, which kind of irrigation method are considered applicable, and which kind of use this water can be destined, for example, for processing food crops, in this case, non-food crops for human, but feed for animals. So it's still a bit behind as a clear structure, but the picture will be this one. Very importantly, the annex of this proposal also details how the risk assessment document should be structured. And this is very important, I think, the first point, and we will see it later on. Everything should start from describing how the water use system is considered, is thinked, because there can be different factors. A direct pipe from a wastewater treatment plant to a farmer, a pipe that goes to a irrigation consortium, and then the irrigation consortium distributes it to farmers. So there is no clear picture, and the document starts from that. From that also it considers everything that turns around the definition of the risk and how the preventive measures should be defined. For CAP, the objective is in the same concept that was for water safety plan, to be a pilot of this new concept. So CAP is, because we are working on it, the first Italian water service company developing its own sanitation safety plan. Obviously the objective is to build a meaningful and very solid risk assessment document, which is let's say focusing on two parts. First, the definition of the quality of the water, and secondarily, the relation between the quality of the water and the crop, meaning that, for example, in a certain kind of field with a certain kind of crop, the limits for the water quality could be different from another geographical situation or another kind of crop, and this will be verified, I will describe it later on, by testing how the different crops are, for example, absorbing and developing different kinds of contaminants. Very important is the dissemination. Dissemination, again, to different kind of stakeholders, given that this is for sure a very delicate topic. The project that CAP developed will put a great effort on assuring to all stakeholders, mostly on the public, that the procedures and all the structure is solid and reliable. But how a sanitation safety plan is built? First of all, I mean, to prepare a sanitation safety plan, the first topic is to describe also the sanitation system. Describe the sanitation system is meaning also how the wastewater treatment is done. Wastewater treatment plants are very different from one another for the technologies that are applied and on the different sections. For example, and in this, it is very relevant for this topic, the disinfection, so what is normally called tertiary treatment, it's how it is performed influenced very much the quality of the water, so it's a key for defining a sanitation safety plan. Then there is a definition of the hazardous events, so everything that can put at risk the system. An incremental work that starts from the analysis, and from the analysis there is a review of the risks and how the risks are considered, because if on a category of potential contaminants 40 analytes, my analysis over a year period tell me that only one compound is present, that category will have anyway a lower risk than it's considered at the beginning. And then, I mean, it is a cycle that improves itself by making turns. How a sanitation safety plan is different in respect to a water safety plan? There is a lot of overlapping, but there are at least two very different concepts. For example, in the exposure group, the water safety plan looks at the quality of the drinking water, so the exposure group is the consumer who drinks the water. For the sanitation safety plan, there are multiple exposure groups, because the water, the treated water, goes into the fields. So, for example, also the farmers are the people who works in agriculture are an exposure group. The people who eats the crops, but also the animals. So it's more varied, and it has to take to be taken into consideration. Another important aspect, as I already said, is that water safety plan turns around a very clear regulatory framework, while sanitation safety planning is still in definition from the normative perspective. EuropoCap has put together a group of different technical stakeholders to help in this new project. For example, we have considered the two main are the University of North Carolina, specifically the Water Institute of the University of North Carolina, because they are bringing experience from the United States where these kind of approaches are already diffused, and the Italian Health Institute, which is the regulatory institute for this kind of topics. So it is important that they are inside to give guidance and also give assurance of the quality of the work. And then we have different research institutions that are carrying out the more technical aspects related, for example, to the analysis of the water and the contaminants. It is a pilot project, so we have defined a playground, and the playground is one of CAP wastewater treatment plants, specifically the one located in the municipality of Peschiera Borromeo, which is in the south of Milan, and it is a very nice choice from that point of view because it is located inside an agricultural park, which is the one in the southern of Milan. So if you see the picture, the wastewater treatment plant is completely surrounded by fields. So it's a nice match to study about the reuse of wastewater, of treated wastewater for agricultural purposes. Some data about Peschiera Borromeo wastewater treatment plant. It's quite a big plant. It's about 600,000 people equivalent. It has two different line of treatment. The one which is the oldest and the biggest one, which takes water from different local municipalities, and the newest one, which takes actually water also from the municipality of Milan, the eastern area. It's a smaller one. The big difference is that line one has a disinfection treatment. made of peracetic acid, using peracetic acid, while line 2 has a disinfection treatment using ultraviolet lamps. This is very different, and line 2 with the UV lamps is already conceived for the to potentially produce reused water of the good quality to go into agriculture. It's also important to say that it is municipal wastewater, but the plant receives almost 1/4 of its load from industrial activities. How the sanitation safety planning will be implemented, is being implemented. There are a more technical phase, a more technical part, which is divided in 2 phases. The first one, analytical monitoring and reasoning about the data, completely focused on wastewater. So analysis, different analysis campaign on wastewater and the content of these categories, so heavy metal, pesticides, herbicides, emerging contaminants, and pathogens in wastewater, and a reasonment about how these compounds could be bioaccumulated in plants. In phase 2, we are working on plants, so we will characterize on experimental fields irrigated with this water if these compounds are absorbed by the plants and in which kind of mechanisms. And also we will start focusing on the soil because we want to be sure, for example, by looking at transport models in aquifers, that the contaminants that are not transferred to plants are not endangering the water source, so that they are not going to pollute our water source. In parallel, we will have the risk assessment running, but again, as I've said, the dissemination. How we have been working on the technical part up to now, we have been stressing a lot how to define the 2 risk matrices that I will show you later on, qualitative and quantitative, by working with the University of North Carolina. We have selected which could be the target compounds. As I said, there is no European regulations. There is something that is coming. There is an Italian regulation. We have put together this data, and we have selected target compounds. We are currently working on the analytical phase 1. So we have done the first analysis, and we should discuss the results very, very soon. And we are starting to put together the risk assessment group document, while the dissemination will come on later. So how a qualitative risk matrix is built? First of all, for a sanitation safety plan, you have to go into detail for each section of the process. So you start to define risks, hazardous events related to the water coming in from the sewer, to the treatments, different treatment section of the wastewater treatment plants, what comes out, so the effluent of the wastewater treatment plant, a potential storage section. As I've said before, there is no clear picture how the reuse will be done, so you have to consider that there could be a storage unit, the point of use, so where the irrigation is made, and then, most importantly, the field and the crops. A risk matrix, very classically, is defined by matching the severity of the hazard and the likelihood on the hazard, giving numbers, and then defining which is a risk rating. This is done, this is more clear. As I said, it is done for each node or section of the process. All the potential hazardous events are defined with the hazard linked to the hazardous event. So it could be microbiological, it could be chemical. The exposure routes and exposure groups, as I said before, sanitation safety planning could have different kind of exposure groups, and then very importantly to put together which are the current existing control measures to verify that these hazardous events are not happening, and which could be considering the risk. So if I have a low risk, I will possibly match with the existing control measures. If I have high risk, I will consider to upgrade my control measures, and then I will reassess the risk to lower it to green, let's say. In parallel, we are running a quantitative risk assessment matrix. Quantitative means that I am looking, for example, to one parameter, it could be E. coli, to its influent concentration. So how, which is the concentration of E. coli coming inside in the influent, and then I am putting how the treatment are lowering the concentration of E. coli, and I am so getting which will be the concentration of E. coli at the exit of the plant, and so on up until the end of the chain, so the crops and the soil. And then I will, let's say, consider failures, possible failures of the different section of the treatments, and by putting how much the failure will impact the missing treatment, I will have an idea on, for example, if I have a failure on the secondary sedimentation, how much this will impact the concentration of E. coli at the exit. And so if the impact is high, so the concentration of E. coli will not be abated as I expect, I will put more monitoring and control measures on that. The first phase of analysis, as I said before, will be dedicated to wastewater. So to measure the concentration in different campaigns, different seasons also, of categories of waste of contaminants like heavy metals, like persistent molecules like PCBs, PBDs, pesticides and herbicides, emerging contaminants, very importantly, and again, to try, starting from literature data and from some small work done in the lab, to understand how all these molecules are bioaccumulated in plants. For some compounds, there is already knowledge, for example, for the heavy metals. Emerging contaminants are more complicated, so it needs still study. The emerging pathogens are also another important topic, because as we know, for the new drinking water regulation, the European Commission is putting an high point of introducing a new pathogen analysis for water. So we have selected different new potential pathogens to be characterized, and for example, Salmonella, for example, norovirus, and then to expand our qualification of the treated wastewater. Phase 2, as I've said, so everything that has been done before, it's passing to plants. So after I've defined how there could be a bioaccumulation, we will verify it by analyzing the plants to find the possible concentration of these compounds, but also to define the antibiotic resistances. So even if we have to, by having pathogens, it is important to see that we are not building antibiotic resistance with these pathogens. And again, for us, very important, because we are water service, to be sure that these contaminants are not transported from the soil into the aquifers, so they are not polluting our water source. So this is more or less everything from me. Thank you for your attention.
Very much, Marco. I was very interesting presentation. I will give again like 1 or 2 minutes. If anybody wants to write any questions, there is the question window down right, so you can write it there. And in the meantime, I just remember to our participants that the recorded videos of the webinars and the presentations shown by the panelists will be available for free on our website, so you can download them from there. What I would like to ask to you is just if some more details about how do you involve the stakeholders in this pilot project that you had in this sanitation safety planning and the pilot projects. I mean, do they have any, for example, any financial benefits, or do you foresee them to have any? I mean, I know I'm playing the bad one right now, just to know.
No, it's a very pertinent question. We are, I mean, at this stage we have been discussing mainly with the agricultural stakeholders, for example, agricultural consortia, and they are very interested in this opportunity. We have been discussing it also with our regulators, and there is the possibility of I mean, the water will probably will be given for free by the water service, but it will probably be charged in some way in what the users usually pay for the water service. So we are trying to find a way to not charge too much the public, but at the same way we have to valorize the investment that we are doing. But very probably it will be something spread on the overall water service cost, so it will be some cents for the end user, and it will be a very high value for the farmers.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions, so I think we can have. I thank again to Marco Bernardi and to Lorenzo Barilli for their presentations. Now I think we can have 5-10 minutes break. I see that the other panelists for the waste management webinars who will follow straight away. Noemi De Santis and Paolo Fornari already joined in. So we can have 5-10 minutes break. Thank you again, Marco, and see you again for the other webinar for the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you. Okay, good morning once again to everybody. I see Noemi De Santis and Paolo Fornari who are joined in. So Noemi and Paolo, are you there?
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Paolo. I work for Junco as a Communication and External Relations Officer. This morning with me, we have also Noemi De Santis, our Head of Communication. We will introduce you our project, Junker, an app for waste sorting and circular economy. That's the content of our presentation. I will start with a brief introduction about the concept of circular economy and waste management and waste legislation in Europe and in Italy. And after that, I will hand over to my colleague Noemi for the part about Junker. So the functions of the app, the relation between Junker and its users, some numbers, and some innovation coming up in the next weeks. But let's start first with a brief video about the circular economy. Realized by the European Parliament, because this concept is at the focus of our activity as a Junker app.
European citizen consumes, on average, 14 tons of raw materials per year and produces every year 5 tons of waste. And yet this waste, these products and these materials could be reused, repaired or recycled. This is the principle of the circular economy, a concept promoted by the European Parliament. The aim is to move away from the linear model that's been predominant since the Industrial Revolution. It's time to break with the take, make, use, dispose pattern of growth. In its place, we're to have a circular economy where the life cycle of products is extended to reduce the use of raw materials and the production of waste. Raw materials, design, production or remanufacturing, distribution, consumption, use, reuse or repair, collection. Residual waste leaves the cycle. Recycling of what can be recycled. In order to reinsert these raw materials at the beginning of this new endless cycle.
Okay.
European.
So within a society that is affected by various problems like pollution, lack of resources, overproduction of waste, there is an urgent need to shift from a linear economy, which is produce, consume, and dispose, to a circular economy in which the products, after being consumed, are put back into the circle in order to get back as many resources as possible to be recycled, reused, repaired, and so on. And that's why the European Commission in 2015 decided to revise a lot of directives about waste, packaging, landfill, batteries, and proposed a package, the circular economy package, with a lot of amendments to the old directives. The package was then approved after some amendments and proposals by the European Parliament and the Council in 2018, and now the EU member states have to translate the European legislation into the national ones within 2 years, which means by this summer, by summer 2020. For waste management, the main directive is the Waste Framework Directive, which sets the basic concepts and definitions related to waste management, explains when waste ceases to be waste and becomes a secondary raw material, and explains how to distinguish between waste and byproduct, which are products, secondary products, deriving from the production process. The new directive launched by the European Commission sets first some targets. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah. So the targets for recycling of municipal waste and packaging waste. The targets for recycling of municipal waste are 55% by 2025 and 65% by 2035, while for recycling of packaging waste, we have a target of 65% by 2025 and 70% by 2030. These are ambitious targets, but some of our member states have already reached the targets. For example, Germany, Austria, Slovenia, while other member states are still very far from reaching the target. For example, Malta or Cyprus. For those states who are not on track to meet the targets, the European Commission has decided to postpone, let's say, the targets and give them some years more to reach them. So then, apart from the targets, the new legislation sets general requirements for EPR schemes. EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility, which means that the producer is responsible for the product not only during the production process, but during its entire life cycle, which means also in the post-production phase when the product needs to be disposed or recycled. That's why producers are now asked to better design product in order to make them more sustainable. And for that, they can also get incentives to improve the design of the products. Then the directive describes economic tools to implement waste hierarchy, take measures to prevent waste generation, and ensure the separate collection of bio-waste when possible. By waste hierarchy, I mean establishing priorities to treat waste. So at the top of the hierarchy, we have, of course, waste prevention. Then we have reuse, repair, recycle, and finally, energy recovery, so waste burned to produce energy, and disposal. EU member states should try to stick to the top of the hierarchy, so repair, reuse, and recycle. Finally, the directive introduces an early warning system for monitoring the progress towards targets and clarifies the methods used to calculate this progress. So the European Commission can intervene if it notices that some member states are not on track to meet the targets, and can warn them to give some inputs to make them notice that they are not meeting the targets. According to the Commission, the full package would create over 170,000 jobs, new jobs by 2035, avoid over 600 million tons of CO2 by 2035, and increase the competitiveness of the EU waste management and recycling sector. What about Italy? In Italy, we are still working on translating the new legislation into our national one. The current Italian waste legislation is based on a law published in 2006 called Testo Unico Ambientale, which defines the waste hierarchy, classifies waste types, regulates waste treatment, and divides competencies between state, regions, provinces, and municipalities. In Italy, we are quite good at recycling packaging. Our recycling rate for packaging waste is 67%. We are the third country in Europe after Germany and Spain for that. And we have very good percentages for materials like paper and aluminum, over 80%, and glass, over 70%, while we can still do better for materials like plastic and wood, for which the percentages are still under 50%. It's very important to notice that in Italy, for plastic and glass, you can only recycle packaging waste, which means that objects made of plastic and glass cannot be recycled, but they need to be disposed, while packaging can be recycled. In Italy, the municipalities are in charge for waste treatment, so they can collect waste themselves, or they can give the task to private waste disposal companies. Once the waste fractions are collected, they can be sold to the consortium, which are union groups for different materials. So there is a consortium for paper, a consortium for plastic, and so on. It is very important that waste is sorted well, because if the fractions are clean without impurities, the economic return from this selling will be higher. While when the fractions are, let's say, dirty, so the impurities go over 20% of the entire quantity, these fractions cannot be sent to recycle. That's why it's very important for the municipalities that citizens sort waste correctly. And since the citizens are the ones who are making the effort to sort waste correctly and make actions for this shift to the circular economy, they must be guided and supported in sorting waste. A brief view also on the waste management situation in Turkey. According to some data from 2016, the recycling rate is still low, under 10%. The responsibility for waste collection, as in Italy, lies with municipalities, and the main collection systems are campsite collections in large cities, which means waste containers on the streets, or collection bin system, a sort of door-to-door collection, but just in smaller settlements. So this was a brief introduction about the legislative framework, but how can we apply it in a more concrete way within our society? That's why we decided to launch Junker, a virtual assistant for waste sorting and a powerful tool to foster circular economy that can help the citizens to become the real protagonists of the circular economy. At this point, I will hand over to my colleague, Noemi. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo. I will take the screen if I can have it. I'm ready to show you a brief video from our company, and in which you will see. Okay, here I am.
It's
Hi, everybody.
Eugenio. I'm giving you the screen right now. Thank you, Paolo, very much for your very clear presentation. Let's say we can go on with Noemi, and we leave the minutes for the questions at the end of Noemi's speech. So we have a more complete overview, and then the participants can have questions at the end of Noemi's speech. So let's continue with Noemi. Thank you.
Thank you. Here's our video.
Does recycling drive you crazy? Guides, flyers, and toll-free numbers not solving your problems?
Oops, sorry. Si sentiva il video? Can you hear the video?
Yes, the video was clear, yes.
Perfetto, I will say.
Does recycling drive you crazy? Guides, flyers, and toll-free numbers not solving your problems? Introducing a brand new app, simple and fast. Junker. Junker recognizes each product from its barcode, breaks it into its materials, and tells you which bin they go into according to the rules of the place where you are. And if the product is not listed, just send a photo to Junker. You will receive a notification in real time with the requested info, and the product will be added to its archive of 1.5 million products. And what if you're traveling for work or vacation? No problem. Just geolocate to get the information of the area where you are. Calendars, notifications, collection points, news, and reports. No more mistakes, no more headaches. Make your recycling problems a thing of the past. Download Junker now and be a star of the circular economy.
Here we are. I will present you in detail the main features of Junker. We call it a fostering tool for circular economy, because Junker recognizes more than 1.5 million products, which is a huge quantity, shows calendars for door-to-door collection if needed. It has maps for point of interest, sharing, exchanging, repair, geolocalize users, as you saw in the video, so you can have the information of your town or the town you are staying, not every information available, which may be confusing or different. And also Junker spreads best practice and circular economy initiatives, which is very important, so people can adopt them, change behavior, and share with other people. So there's nothing like Junker, and we fondly encourage you to test it out. We say that Junker is unique in Europe because there are no real competitors as far as today, because Junker is interactive. Many tools are available for waste sorting, but not everyone is interactive. No one is interactive like Junker. With Junker, if you send a photo of a product which is missing, you receive the information required in a few hours maximum top. Junker is fast, is easy, is always with you, and is complete. When you scan a product barcode, Junker shows you an identikit of the product with each component, the material of the component, and the bin of destination, which is very helpful, because in many cities there are different rules. So people changing cities, as you saw in the video, have to restart the learning process. Not with Junker. If a product is missing from our database, user can send a photo, the photo is geolocalized, and we receive it and answer, and then we put the product in the database. That's why Junker is so widespread in Italy, because it answers to everyone. But not every product has got a barcode. So how do you do when you do not have a barcode to scan? You just write the name. We have a text search, or you look for the symbol which is on the packaging. You choose the shape of the symbol, and then you recognize it in the list, and you can have the information on the materials, and also, of course, the information of disposal. Not only waste, Junker is also has maps. There are Google Maps we are using, and on these maps we put point of interest. Point of interest means point of disposal, but also of reuse, repair, exchange, and we also map circular economy initiative in your town, best practices, and sustainable companies you can choose to buy your product. So, as you can understand, citizens are the real engine and protagonists of Junker. They help us build a database. I think the last time I looked for, I saw that people sent us in 4 years more than 200,000 products to add to our database, which is a huge help. So their database is not only of Junker, but of many people. And they interact on our social media, because Junker has a very lively community, and we exchange every day stories, best practices, articles, and posts, and so on. But our success wouldn't be the same without municipalities who adopt, associate to Junker, enter in our network. And why do they enter? Because they have advantages. The advantages is that a direct tool to communicate with citizens and spread rules and information easier and faster, and they gain in exchange higher consensus. We better the relationship between administration and citizens on circular economy. They get compliance, they get also an economic return, which is higher quality and quantity of waste fraction to resell on the market. And so let's say that the higher economic return, it's the bottom line, it's the reason of our success. Of course, we strive also for sustainable tourism, because Italy is mainly a touristic destination. So we fully translated Junker in 10 languages for tourists, but also for foreign communities living and working in Italy. So you will find from English, French, German, and Spanish to Chinese, Russian, Ukrainian, Romanian inside Junker. No one gets without information. We try to make it easy to use and quick for really everybody, which means also blind and visual impaired people. I think we are the most advanced app in sharing and accessibility for the visual impaired. Where is Junker? After 4 years, we are in 800 municipalities all over Italy. As you can see, we go from the very south to the very north of Italy, different cities, different sizes, different needs. We cover every one of them, and we are proud to say that we cooperate with them. So 10% of all Italian municipalities have adopted Junker. We have also a little spin-off in Switzerland, the first 10 towns, and we are starting to learn how to share Junker in another country. We are ready to go abroad. In a slide, our numbers. As I told you, 4 years online from the first publishing, from the first release of Junker, 1.5 million products, and from 3 to 5 thousand new active users every day. which is a very important and continuous growing of our user base. We reached more than 30 million app searches from our users all over Italy. We have the pleasure to have 1/3 of households or family using Junker in each city. 1/3 is it's a huge number. And we have 99% of client retention. It means that the first municipalities that joined Junker 4 years ago are still with us and they still collaborate. So it's family. What's next? This year, we will launch a new feature we are very proud of, which is a new way to search for information in Junker. I told you, you can search by barcode, you can search by text, you can search by symbol. Now we make possible to search by image recognition. It means that you take a photo of a product and Junker will tell you how to dispose of it. Of course, there is some artificial intelligence in it, and of course, there will be an initial experimental trial in which user will help Junker learn and understand how to recycle. Then it will be spread all over. I will finish my brief presentation of Junker with a good note. You can fight climate change also using Junker, because waste, especially mixed waste, is very consuming of carbon dioxide, CO2. So if you reduce, and with Junker you can reduce a lot the mixed waste you produce in, you can reduce also the impact of your life on the climate. So if you want, we can send you this nice poster which helps you understand and motivate in recycling more and more every day. If you want to find more, we have a website, which of course is junkerapp.it, and we have an email. Download Junker, try it. It's easy, it's free, of course, and don't be shy. Ask everything you need, and we will answer. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Noemi. So there is already one question, so I will go directly with the questions, because I also would have asked that. A participant is asking if can they use Junker in Turkey? Is there any restrictions about it, or?
Junker can be used everywhere. The point is that firstly, we need to put the Turkish products. So if you scan a product in Turkey, maybe we do not have it, surely we do not have it in our database. So we have to classify and put it in the database. So this is a service we do not give now outside of Italy, of course. And secondly, we answer you according to the rules of Italy, rules and waste destinations we have in Italy. So maybe they are different. For Junker to go abroad, and we know it because we are going to Switzerland now, we need to make a release for the receiving countries with the local rules, the local products, and so on. So it means that we need to start a process of cooperation with the administration. Of course, there are subscriptions, a joint team, then we can go to Turkey.
Okay, so just to understand it better, if maybe a municipality, a Turkish municipality, would be interested in starting a pilot project using Junker, which are the steps that you will need to go through to implement it?
It's quick and easy because we just study the rules. We estimate the economic and the resource effort to make the pilot, and then the maintenance of the, of course, of the app in the new country, and then we can start. We have a very quick process of acquiring database for products and barcodes and rules. So in a few months, we can be operational in a new country.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see other questions. So right now, I would say I repeat it again. We have participants can download for free the recorded webinars and the PPTs from our website. Right now, I will switch to my screen so I can show the participants where they can go. I mean, these are the next webinars. We will have it in we will have it on next Thursday, 30th of January, and to download the previous webinars, you just go to our website, kyotoclub.org, and you follow the EU and Turkish flags. You find it here, and you can find all the materials and the recorded videos. So thanks again to Paolo and Noemi. I'm sure it has been a very interesting presentation, and see you for the next time, because we'll have another webinar with you. And I am pretty sure that you will have news from Turkey about that. So
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, and have a nice day, and see you soon. Thanks to all the participants, and see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.